right now, whenever I get very anxious at times, and whenever I'm having that times, I try to think of world as a big swimming pool, and why am I trying to resist to make my way?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Current Art Podcast. I'm Yaching, and so nice to have you back. And today I'm with Junaid, who is my classmate, is also my cohort in Hunter College Integrated Media Arts Department. Junaid, could you please introduce yourself a little bit?
My name is Junaid Arif. Yeah. And I am trying to be a filmmaker. I made a couple of independent films. I worked as an assistant director, and I believe my purpose in life is to strive for people, to advocate for people to have more right to ask questions.
Yeah.
So, and thank you so much for having me. You have so many wonderful artists on your podcast, and I believe when you reached me out, I was like, I'm very starting my journey, and I was actually a bit overwhelmed, and thank you for having me. I hope I do justice to this podcast.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you, because I think everybody is on their timeline, and also I think you are doing an amazing job. I think it's such a long journey to this country to be able to study in this country, right?
Oh,
and I think there's a lot of effort, like time, energy, money, commitment to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been wonderful. I mean, I'm from Pakistan. There's one of the second biggest cities of Pakistan, which is called Lahore. I come from there, and it's been a huge transition for me. I just moved here to New York like 1 year ago, and it's been a huge transition from the area which I come from, and I'm only the second in my family who has moved to New York. The last person from my family who moved to New York were like 25 years ago, and no one in between ever came to New York. And we came from family where it's a middle class family.
I never been to Pakistan. The closest I've been to is India. And I was in India. I visited Punjab, which is the province that adjunct to Lahore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In 1947, there's like a partition war. Many people have died. And because of that, and Pakistan became its own country.
Yeah.
Under the British rule, right?
Yeah. So actually, I'm jealous of the fact that you visited India.
Yeah.
I so wish I could visit India. I couldn't because I'm a Pakistani, and even if I marry someone who's Indian, or even if I have another citizen, since my birth is from Pakistan, I can never. Unless it's it's very difficult for me to go to India and visit India, despite that, because of all the political scenario. It was a very brutal transition. It was not exactly a war, but it was like they just drew up borders, or random borders, that this area will be considered Pakistan, and this will be part of India, and India would be a Hindu majority state, and Pakistan would be a Muslim majority state. The massacre that happened was due to the uprising of local militias, and it was terrible. It was it was a chaos from every part of the side. Now people were transitioning through the trains from both sides. The trains were attacked, burned down. My grandmother was 3 years old when she moved from India to Pakistan, along with her father. And I have a very small memory of what she tells me, like, how hard was it? Like she tells me, like, she's not, she passed away So she also tells me like some of the stories that she recalled. Like like her parents had to like hide her under a big blanket of uh different clothes so that it doesn't look like that they have a child with them, or otherwise they would kill the child. And that's how they eventually because everything was so polarized, and there were like riots everywhere.
So even though now, like I think almost 100 years later, it's still not possible to visit each country, right? You can still not go to India because of you're from Pakistan.
In recent 10 years, it has been impossible. For example, there just like the Hindutva ideology that has been introduced by Indian government and other factors, and then
Yes.
more religious extremism rise in Pakistan, and the whole of other political scenarios. It has been like the Bollywood films were banned initially from the cinemas, then music was banned from either sides. India is not playing any Pakistani music, they're not allowed to, and then Pakistani televisions are not allowed to on air any Indian Bollywood cinema, music, dramas, anything at all. Everything was completely shut down. There was a huge art blockade, and that was the start of it. And then trade was never happening properly between India and Pakistan anyways. It was just the trade of artists that had some hope that it could lead eventually further on and develop something very harmonious between two nations that has so much of similarity. I mean, I remember while I was young, I had so much emotions in me. I was like very, I'm such a passionate, emotional person. But we had like 3 full-fledged wars with India. And while growing up, I was taught in schools and by the peers around me that being a Pakistani, it's essential for me to hate India because I cannot love my neighboring country and being a Pakistani at the same time. And we had like very strong emotions. There's a place called Wagah border. That's like a border area which is divided by gates. And there's like every year, I think every day or every weekend or something, there's a parade ceremony between both the countries where at this side of it's very iconic. At this side of the gate, there are Pakistani audiences, and the other side of the gate, there are Indian audiences. And they do some very weird, like kind of a parade like movements and very aggressive stance, like provocative in very provocative ways. And then there are judgments of like Pakistan Zindabad, and they're like Jai Hind, which the Indians say to like boost their patriotism. And then there's a kind of a scenario of like it's a very huge polarized rival kind of a scenario where this side wants to be more louder and more superior than the other side, and the whole collective environment wants to shout louder than them and be more aggressive and kind of try to like show that we are more stronger than you.
Yeah, what is this border again?
It's called Wagah border, WAHGAH. Wagah border ceremony. And I mean, majority of the borders between India and Pakistan, specifically on the Punjab region, they have this kind of ceremony.
Yes.
Where they both have this kind of phrase.
Is this parade happens like in certain day, like a festival, or why is it parade happening?
For us, when we were children, it was like a source of entertainment for us to go out and just have fun.
So it happens really frequently.
Yeah, it happens very frequently. If not every weekend, at least every month. That's what I'm very sure about.
Ah, okay, interesting.
And there are specific soldiers that are trained to have like to spread to have like the highest what they call it as salute, where they do like the army thing, like how they do, and then they raise their leg. The most highest ranks are being raised and then stomped on the floor as a very aggressive nature, and it creates a huge thump. And then there's like, while videos are being circulated on media, there are already comments by people like, our soldier made the loudest stomp and like raised the most highest leg in the air and stomp. And it's like that weird rivalry between.
Interesting. Is it like sort of self-organized event, or this is like every time is the military involved or government involved?
No, it's definitely it's actually a flag raising ceremony,
Flag
which
raising
is
ceremony.
turned into this whole parade and not musical, but like the patriotic music's being played everywhere, and then it's very well organized by the governments of both sides.
Mm.
Yeah.
That is so interesting because I remember we have this flag ceremony every Monday. I always have a low sugar level, so when we are standing like in the school or like early morning as a 10 years old, I was like, I could not stand there. I have to go to the back row to squat because it's too early, and it's, when the national song anthem is playing, it's too much for me. I cannot stand there. It happens so often while I was a kid, yeah.
And oh my God, did you feel bad about it?
You mean, do I feel bad about have a bad sugar level?
No,
Sugar level?
not a bad sugar level. But like, did you like had bad feeling like you are not able to stand up, or
You mean, is it
like,
emotional?
as emotional, like were you patriotic as a child? That's what I'm supposed to ask.
Yeah, I think the first reason is definitely a physical reason, so sugar level. I think the second thing, or I think it could be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't understand why we have to stand there collectively for this like flag raising, and I couldn't connect with that event to a personal mission. Like, even though as a kid, I wanted to know, why am I doing that? For what reason? And I could not find a reason for that. I could not support my reason to stand there straight. So I guess this is also emotional reason. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you were a smart kid then, because I mean, I was like, yeah, I was just like I would say bowing. How do you say bow? Like did with this bow?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, going down to whatever they were teaching me initially as a child, and my the whole questioning thing came later on in life, where I was like, okay, where it just came out as a revelation, where I just popped that bubble of realization, where okay, whatever they're teaching me is definitely not right. It's something is very wrong with everything, and that's when I started opening my eyes. Otherwise, I would be very, very, very pro patriotic.
So you have like a awakening moment where you questioned your identity, you questioned the environment that you grew up, right? Like, what is exactly that moment? Because you were also telling me the other day about you were growing up in a Orthodox religious family. Does it have something to do with religion or not?
It does. I mean, yeah, I grew up in in an Orthodox practicing religious family.
Well,
My mother is still very religious. A lot of my a lot of my family is still religious, even to the point there are some preachers in the family too, like to that point.
well,
And yeah, and it's generally, it's also like the society, how the society is constructed. If you're more religious, you will get generally more respect in the society.
Yeah.
You will get more space in the society. So it is, obviously it will be heavily personalized it will be very different in terms of personal scenarios. So generally it's like how if a person has a religious attire, he has like big beard, he goes to mosque every 5 days. You can see the person walking to mosque, like, because in Pakistan we have like a sense of community, which is very, very interesting, beautiful culture, where everyone knows who lives around, people hang out, people like, and their children are friends with each other, they know who's marrying who, and it's very beautiful kind of a culturally a culture mixture where everybody knows the other person, what their phases of life are going on, very interconnected. Sometimes, obviously, it has its cons where it gets nosy and it gets complex too, but it's by and large it's beautiful. Whereas in Eastern world where it's more isolated and more individualistic and people just like try to keep to themselves.
Yeah, I was growing up in a quite secular family, not quite very secular family, and I did have this kind of feeling. I do not know who is my neighbor, like because there's no event that ties us together. Yeah, so I understand the cons.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in what you're saying that your mom is very religious. Like, how does it influence your life? Like, how does religion play a role in your life?
I was extremely religious as a child. I used to not listen to music because I was told like what was taught to me was like if you submit yourself to a higher being and respect your elders, that means not asking them tough questions.
Interesting. So that means being submissive, being obedient is considered good.
Yeah, exactly. And also that also carries on in the larger culture of the whole how the fabric, which is not exactly a very bad thing in some sense, but obviously it has cons, which kind of how the culture is constructed because religion and culture are like very intertwined. So it will get that complex. So that's how the culture is also where I mean, I still remember things have pretty changed now, but while I was very young, it was seen as provocation, or it was seen as something very an act of disobedience to just look in your father's eyes and like stare for 2 seconds. So if you're talking to an elder, you're supposed to have your eyes down and so that they have like this sense of dignity and you're not doing that. And even if they're wrong, the general sense of society is you don't speak to them right at the moment. You just listen and respect them at that moment, and then maybe later on go to them, and which doesn't happen realistically, but that's what the whole sense is. Like you just go if you're alone.
So you cannot confront an elder or a person in society if their status or age is older than you. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, that was the major essence. Obviously, things now have been changed a lot and more. It's more open, expanded, and welcoming, and more less rigorous and less dense now.
Okay, I understand. So there's a underlying logic to how people are supposed to treat each other.
Yeah, it was just like an unsetting, like in AM classes where you have a certain chair and you are supposed to sit on that. And nobody said that you're supposed to sit on the same chair.
I understand. So you go into a classroom or you go into a classroom settings that you know there's a primary chair in the middle and that's where somebody is supposed to sit there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's usually the first. I mean, it's weird to me because I consciously change my seat just to break that monotony and to be rebellious for the same reason. And I have my personality of being rebellious because I knew I popped my first conditioning, and now I knew that I won't let any other random conditioning which has no weird logics to just force me to act certain way.
I really respect that because it is very hard to jump out of your own religion. I mean, here I'm not saying religion as religious, but it's hard to break down your own logic. And once you did that, many things are going to change. Yeah, it's interesting. So how does it feel like to eventually come out of this religious context or to this country that you choose not to devote anymore?
The culture and the atmosphere which I found suffocating, I actually started to accept and love more and I understood like it was actually not that bad, which I was like actually thinking while I was in my country. I've started appreciating the country's culture more while I had this exposure in US of this isolation and independence and whatever you want to name it of the Western thing. And uh, I should say people in Pakistan where I grew up, everybody kind of sees up to West, where the culture and everything West do as liberating is very much adoptable. We should adopt whatever they're doing, which is absolutely trash, and which is like we still need to embrace our own culture. We have lost our Punjabi culture. It's so beautiful. We have lost our other small intricacies of culture, just like trying to follow Western identity and being more accepted in the world. But it's so beautiful. It's so original, and it's very the ways we have been for thousands of years is it's so different and unique, and it has its own intricacies. So
I have a question. So when people talk about culture, everybody like understand it very differently. So I'm as an artist, I think about culture. Of course, I think about all the visual arts first. That is something else. As if somebody is a musician, they might think about the music first. So when you talk about culture, what were you talking about specifically?
So specifically about Punjabi culture, we had this culture of we had these headscarves that are now just restrained to villages. In cities, people think that's uncool to wear, and they are more into like polo shirts and jeans, and it's completely changed. And every kid who walks out of village who starts to live in cities starts to like get rid of it. Shalwar kameez, we have a very beautiful dress, which is a national dress, which has been worn there for years and centuries. It's very interesting. I'll just say something very specific and personal. I was having a conversation with my uncle who's here too. And he was actually like, we have like a very huge discussion on like how to dress up. And he doesn't agree with me because he's like, he has a very corporate kind of upbringing, and he has seen the world the other ways, where he tells me like dress in a specific way in like neutral tone so that you look more formal and and I obviously don't agree with that because I as an artist I was supposed to question whatever is being taught to me. So to convince me, he tells me a story. He tells me like I was going to visit a hospital and it was like a bit late, and he was there with my father. And they were about to enter a hospital, and it was just about like 5 or 10 minutes past visiting hours. And he was wearing shalwar kameez, which is like the you would see like people wear in mosques.
Yeah.
The
like
attire.
a dress that is supposed to be wear in the mosque.
Not just in the mosque. It's just like you can wear it anywhere. But I just referring to if somebody doesn't know what shalwar kameez is. Shalwar kameez. It's like a baggy trouser kind of feel, but usually in films you see people wearing it in mosques.
Yeah, I understand.
So he was wearing, and my uncle was wearing shalwar kameez. My dad, who was with him, was wearing like a 3-piece suit. He's a banker. He's a banker.
Like a suit.
Yeah, he was wearing a suit. Yeah. So he was like, it was like 5 minutes late visiting hour, and he just walked in, and nobody asked why he's going or where he's going. People just assume he's someone with a higher stature or high priority person, and walked in, and he was actually held at the door because it's past visiting time. And so it really said a lot to me. And while he was saying this, I was quite smiling at how he just, in this small instance, and he told me, he was trying to convince me like, and that's what the dressing plays role in the entire culture. And I was smiling because actually his reasoning was doing the entire opposite for me. And it described a very entire how the society fabric is working. And that is the more reason that I need to be the advocate of embracing my own culture Well, that's my responsibility as an artist that I hope I could ever do.
It's interesting because I grew up in a culture like in northern China, and then people wear like really colorful things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like exaggerated, saturated flowers and gray and red, and this like supposed to be the most contracted color because they're on the like far spectrum. And yeah, they were like a culture. They were like a long history why people are dressed like that, and then people making fun of it. And I remember I grew up in a smaller city. I mean, it's not small in comparison to European cities, but in China it's small. And then I moved to a bigger city while I was in my high school. And my classmates were saying that the way I dress up is very countryside-like.
Okay.
So it's not fashionable. Yeah, and I don't know, somehow I changed my dress, the way I dress, to a very generic way, like cool city kids and look like lived in Berlin. I did live in Berlin, and the haircut, everything. And yeah, it's, I don't know, it's my personal taste or society just forced me to transform myself into the way that people are expecting. I think we can always coming back to question something like that.
Yeah, I had a question for you. Like you said, like people were making fun of like the way you guys were dressing up in your hometown. Were you who was making fun of the dressing? Was it like the area in your home, people around you in your hometown too, or?
Oh, I never dressed like gray and blue, like a gray and red and such a saturated color. But of course, you as a kid, you try different things. Some of my dress, when I was young, I like to wear, for example, very exaggerating things, like a giant skirt made out of like heavy jeans materials, like, and or a weird t-shirt has a hole in it in different colors. And I think they're a critique from my classmates, but also there were larger critiques from other parts of the China about the city or the region I grew up, like which is called Dongbei. It's east north. Yeah.
So it's like after you moved to Beijing, that's where the critique happened.
No, when I was moving from Dandong, which is the city I grew up, to Dalian, which is a coastal city still in northeast, but then they were start to having critiques, like just my classmates were talking about how I dress up. Yeah, it's like you don't need to go so far away. You don't need to come out of the region completely. You just need to move to a little bit better city where people think they have the right to say something about how you're supposed to look like.
It's very interesting, this whole topic, like about how you said like how you're supposed to look like.
Yeah.
I came across an article on Juggernaut which was called How West Hates Color, and it was like about was basically about how monotones and were introduced by the West, and what businesses kind of benefited from monotones, and everything was, and not just monotones, but like everything is more. Even if there is color, like you see in McDonald's and stuff, and every color is more on the grayish side. While if I talk about my cultural traditions in South Asia, in India and Pakistan. We have like high, rich, vibrant colors. And I'm not saying which one is right, which one is wrong. I'm just saying like embrace. It's just about embracing versus like looking down upon either one, which should not happen. And we should like just respect the individuality of the cultures, irrespective of how they are. And it's more about like the cultures in South Asia. There's a chadar called there's a Sindhi chadar which is called Ajrak, which is very vibrant red and blue, and it has very interesting patterns on it. It's a very traditional chadar in Sindh, and same as in Punjab. People used to wear like bright pink, purple, like extremely vibrant colors. Even now they do in like village areas where you go like more you wander off across the city, more you see more rich and vibrant colors. And even in Sindh, there's a very small Hindu community, and they have like such an interesting dressing sense where they have like bangles to the whole from their kalai, I don't know what it's called, from their hand, from their wrist, thank you. From their wrist to shoulder, and then very interesting jewelry pieces, sets, and I'm not a designer.
Yeah. Oh, but the way that you describe it is so wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, that is very interesting because I apologize. I think in the back of my mind, like dressing too saturated, like in the back of my mind, I criticize this kind of dress. I think it's too stand out. It's too, maybe it means you put too much time in it, or maybe that means you don't have a good sense of what fashion is or what efficiency is. And I think I am wrong. I'm very, very wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. But I think grayscale status of taste.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry. It is very exciting right now. I'm so glad this comes out. Yeah, that I really have to like we're having this conversation and we're on such different ends of spectrums in terms of like the ideas. Yeah, my question, I would have a lot of questions for you. Like, if you think like a culture, wearing gray, like monotones or like on a grayscale have a higher status. Like, I'm not like critiquing you.
Yeah.
But like, if you had to trace back your belief on like, why do you think like this sense of colors are more higher in status, or like more aesthetic or more beautiful than the other?
I think that must also coming from like experience of living in the metropolitan city. I think when I was younger, when I was living in a smaller city in China, I never had this thought that I need to dress in monotone the whole time. It started when I was living in Beijing, the capital of China. And then we are in the art academy. And our buildings are all gray. Like it was designed by a Japanese designer, architect. And it's really privileged in that area that we lived in was one of the landmark of that area. It's this kind of gray, arty, when the canvas is plain, when the canvas has no color, you are the color. Like people are the color. So I guess if we are all colorful, there's no focus point. So in my mind, I was like, you have to keep something gray in order for some part to brighten up or some part to be visible. That's maybe the back of my thought, why I'm interested in gray scale.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's. But I think it's not only visually, there's like a cultural influences, there's a community influences when people are very into this kind of monotone dress up like, and it could also be convenient. You can always match up everything because of you just have one color, right?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to. I mean, after like certain time, people adopt to certain
Yeah.
things. Like they think something is trendy, something is cool,
Yeah.
and I really think this is not automatic or something.
No.
It is a conscious decision by people who change who like focus drive narratives being in Pakistan, and that's what my whole life is about, like challenging narrative or challenging narratives that are being imposed or like seeing out of those narratives. And it is also part of that. And I believe like very similar occasion, like I see like people from villages who used to wear vibrant colors when they come to cities. It's very similar in Pakistan. They have like huge backlights. There's a word called pendu, which is like a rhetorical mocking word of saying that you are a villager, you are backward, you don't have any sense of taste. They're being called this slur as a pendu if they have like such a huge vibrant colors on, which is very common in Pakistan. But to that thing, I was like, for me, what I think why this eventually everything become monotonic or like in like 3 or 4 basic colors was because somebody is benefiting from it eventually, a businessman or any company is specifically benefiting because it's easier to produce less colors in more abundance and it's less hassle. Like people are more forced to wear certain level of clothes, certain color of clothes because it's easier to replicate them in as.
I was reading this book from Liv Strömquist, which is a graphic novelist.
Oh.
She was talking about a lot about capitalistic society and people's behavior related to that. So she was talking about the self-advocating society. So in the past, if you have done anything wrong, like you felt like guilty, you could go to the church, you could go to certain religion, you could buy this guilt ticket. But right now, in a self-autonomous society, everything is your fault. If you fail, it's your fault. Do you understand? Like, I think this kind of dress code or this influences of success culture, it's very related.
Interesting.
I think this dress code promotes this kind of success culture. Like we have to be efficient, we have to be successful, we have to look in a certain way. You think about the founder of Apple. There's that very typical dress. He was wearing this turtle neck shirt all the time. Yeah, and then people remember him. I felt like maybe the black dress or black suit is somehow like a monument to praise for personal achievement. The more I think about it, the more I felt miserable in the city. I almost forgot about why am I being in another country. Like the goal of immigration is not pursuing success. I don't think so. Or do you think we travel so far all the way from the East? I'm from the East and I went to Germany, then I went to the United States. And you all the way from Pakistan. Do you think what is the goal of immigrating? What is the goal of moving that far? I mean, honestly, not saying something that would sound like self-advocating. It's just what is that?
It's interesting. It has changed over time since I've been here,
And what is the recent most updated version of that?
it's like I like that. Yeah, my software has been updated. It's a common story in Pakistan where if you get abducted and you are speaking against the government and you get abducted and get beaten up, and the next time they force you to make a certain statement which is pro-government, everybody says his software is updated. So my software has been updated about after like being beaten up by New York. For now, I think I was mentioning being lost. I have no sense of direction at all. Like I get lost. I cannot remember road names, navigation. I suck at navigation.
So you're really talking about truly being lost. You're not talking about like metaphor. You're just talking about
I was
no navigation.
I was actually saying, what if I do not have any goal at all?
You don't have any goal.
I mean, because it really, I had the goal. I'm not saying I did not have any goal before coming to here. I was very, very goal oriented before. I was actually hyper workaholic before coming to New York.
Yeah.
And I had this seed planted in my mind way earlier in my childhood that I would escape this country and be somewhere else for different reasons, to have financial gains or whatever. But after studying here at 1 year and meeting artists like you and other artists and seeing their work, I was never in an art school. I had a small sense of group of friends who were artists, but never a proper formal art education. And this is the first time I was properly exposed to arts and how to learn the behind of scenes of artists, not just filmmakers, but other artists too, like how they actually think. And after that, I really think like why should I have a goal in my mind? I mean, the most recent goal I could think of is just to afford an apartment and have 3 meals a day. That's it. I could just explore this life so much, and there's so much more to life than just randomly to chase for the next luxury or to the next supercar or the next whatever. I just wanted to experience life as long as I could meet different people and understand their perspectives and have different experiences in my life. I mean, that's what it is for me, and just being able to share those experiences via my art. It's that's all, and have meaningful human connections in my life.
That's beautiful. Because it's so beautiful. I think I'm very touched by that. Yeah. Yeah, because I got lost. I started this podcast. I really wanted to invite as many people as possible. But then also I started to want to have more listeners as many as possible. And then, of course, I want more people to see it. I want more people to know about it. But I don't know if that's the goal. If the goal is just to have a good talk.
Yeah.
Are you going to cry?
I'm a huge crier. I'm a big crier. So
Yeah.
it's okay. You should.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want tissues? You're almost crying too. It's not just me. I know. I embrace it. I embrace it. Whenever I experience intense emotions in any form, I cry.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, being lost. Yeah, I was always taught. So it's again, I do whatever you tell me, I'll do exactly opposite of that. Because I was being conditioned to be very focused. Because in middle class family, obviously we have to put food on table, and the society and my parents and everybody wanted to take care of me and wanted me to not have struggles that they faced. So they wanted me to have a successful financial liberation, and they wanted me to do well in studies so that I could have a good job and I could have a good wife and I could take care of all of them and have a child and raise my family and provide them shelter and take care of their basic needs and not just strive for putting food on my table. But I while I was living with them, I actually never felt hunger.
Well,
And while I moved to New York, that's the first time I actually experienced hunger. The first time, because I told you my mother sold my land. Not my land, my mother sold her land.
that's
My land. I don't.
his mother sold the land for him to study in
Not
the
just me.
United
It was
States.
also the share of it went to my
Okay.
sister's wedding too. Yeah. Okay. Coming back to that. Like actually, I also went on a documentary and I experienced and talked to people who were who were displaced in their homes. Their homes were destroyed by the flood in 2021 in Pakistan. And I was meeting a lot of different people and just interviewing them. And they were just telling me like they get a small bag of flour and that's just one bread, and they shared just the pieces of the bread in 8 different people in their family at one time, and that's how they survive while they were because their entire houses they have built, all the wells they have stored in their homes in the rural areas were destroyed by the flood completely. And I was very touched by that fact. I was a foodie human before going to that documentary, and I came out with a different belief of understanding of privilege and different understanding of food, that I would never see food as a comfort ever again in my life. But I never experienced it firsthand. The first time I experienced this in New York. Like if I'm hungry and I cannot afford a meal, how does it actually feel like? And well, that should motivate me to strive for more financial stability, but actually it got me thinking. That's all that I need to survive. A food and a shelter. There's a perspective, like there are other children out there and right now in Gaza would get a hold on piece of bread and their whole day would be overjoyed by that piece of bread. So that framing of existence for me completely changed. Because, why should I strive for luxury? And what does eventually luxury means to me? I mean, because for now, the most luxurious I felt was when I was out on a bench and I could just hear some birds chime.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I remember seeing the videos about people in Gaza. They were inventing like different systems to control the volume of the water. So the way they use water, they want to control the velocity so they can save more water during the day. Small gestures and how they get clean waters. And I think you're right that we can cry because of that. We didn't have the best coffee, or the coffee tastes shitty, or we can cry for other things, that philosophical and very deep questions that we have to think about. It's coming down to like what we actually want in our life. Like, how do we want to live a life that we consider meaningful? It doesn't have to be spiritual, but it could be more conscious than right now. It could always be a little bit more conscious. You can always put a little bit more thought into it. So I guess we are always searching and then searching and searching, and it's really exhausting. It's never ending. Yeah. But everybody has their own existential crisis, I guess, I suppose. It could be loss of navigation, could be hunger, or it could be finding meanings in their life, and it could be...
I was a curious child, and I had so many questions, and I would go bonkers if I did not get an answer. I went to everybody I had access to. I searched for YouTube for spiritual leaders and or religious scholars to give me answers, and I was so hungry to get answers. And 1 year in New York, I have so many questions, but I don't need any answers now.
That's so beautiful. What changed? What changed?
It's like this uncertainty is beautiful.
It's so interesting because I just sent a text. I said, there's so many uncertainty in my life right now. Yeah, I feel like so chaotic. Like life is a huge chaotic mass, and I'm in the middle of this mass vortex. It's spinning me around and not giving me a rest.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It is. Because
cheers to our stress and chaos.
Yeah,
and
cheers. I have to share something.
Cheers.
It's water, by the way.
Yeah.
So I used to be a swimmer, and this analogy I take from that.
You used to be a swimmer?
I used to be a swimmer. So yeah, it's like, when you don't know swimming and you're just traveling, you're trying to find your way and just exerting so much energy, and you're not even going anywhere.
Yes.
And once you know, and by knowing, there are also some technique involved, but for me, it also came with trusting the water with my life.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you. Because while I was learning, I was also going through a breakup, and I was very angry at the time.
Yeah.
But I was trying to take my anger out on water. I was just going so hard, as hard on my body as I could. But the moments of peace were where I could just lie down on water and just close my eyes and just trust the water that it would not let me sink. And that moment of stillness is what I try to rep. And it kind of changed my mind right now. Whenever I get very anxious at times, and whenever I'm having that times, I try to think of world as a big swimming pool. And why am I trying to resist to make my way or to find the next lap? I should just trust it and just let myself afloat or dance with it, maybe.
That's so beautiful. This is almost like a personal therapy session for me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You should hire me.
As my therapist, so you will know all of my stories. No. But it's a beautiful way.
Everybody wants to listen to your stories, actually. So
really?
You should. Yeah.
The gossip?
Yeah, the gossip. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end it. Trust the body of water. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
yeah. I think because of this uncertainty can also be possibility. Water, the body of water can carry you, but it can also drown you.
Yeah, it can.
And think what it can do depends on how you see it, right? How you use it. So you use it as a way to float, or you use it as a way to drawn. That's depends on your perspective.
I mean, it was when I was scared of water and anxious that water can drown me. I had more possibilities of drowning
Oh,
because my mind was chaotic with all those thoughts and those intense emotions. And while I was floating, I was not doing anything.
oh,
I was not exerting very minimum. I was exerting very minimum physical energy. But in my mind, I really thought like I used to say to myself, "कि पानी से दोस्ती करनी है," which translates to like I need to be friends with with water.
oh,
And while I did that, I felt so confident, like maybe in myself. I don't know what was that trust or the confidence. Where was I placing that confidence in the water, in me, in my abilities? I don't know that. Or in energies, I have no idea. But it felt calm. That's all.
oh. What I learned is something a little bit different. I think in the midst of chaos, we don't always have to insert in effort. Right? I think I once saw this video was telling me, how do you flow on the water the most efficiently or the most effortlessly? It's like when you completely flatten yourself out. So the effort of like waving your hands and then asking for help and asking for people to save you, it's like will pull you down to the bottom of the water. So I guess what my take is, when you in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, try to lie down. Don't try to fight against the gravity, because no matter what you do, it pulls you down. It's, at that moment, your effort is not important. So I think the takeaway is always inserting the effort actually in the right moment, in the right possibility, and in the right person. And it's not, I just do it. Don't just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in this country, just do it. Don't.
Yeah. I mean, don't be the part of rat race.
Don't be the what?
The part of rat race.
Rat
race. Like
race.
everybody is just like just grinding.
Just grinding. Yeah, don't keep grinding. Stop.
Yeah, just take a step back and see, like, do you really want this, or why are you grinding actually?
Yeah, why you're fighting so hard? What is there to fight? Like, exactly. So the end word is trust the body of water. Trust uncertainty, trust chaos.
Yeah. Chaos is beautiful.
Chaos is beautiful. Well, I think that's true. Okay, thank you so much for watching and listening. I will see you every Sunday, and we are available on YouTube Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Pocket Podcasts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.